guys, today I'm filming a first impression and follow-up on a relatively new foundation. This is the Maybelline SuperStay Full Coverage Foundation. Now, Maybelline had released a SuperStay foundation a long time ago. It's been off the shelf for a couple years, and then they just put out this foundation. So I've never tried out the original foundation, so I won't be able to compare the two, and I'm not sure if this is a new product or whether they remarketed their old foundation and if it has the same formula or not. So if you guys have tried the new and the original formula, please let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. And this foundation is available wherever Maybelline is sold, and the prices do vary. So I purchased mine from Walmart, where it costs $10, and at Ulta it costs $12. So of course, like all drugstore products, Walmart and Target will be cheapest, and then Ulta and drugstores will be a couple of dollars more. For the shade range, there are 16 shades, and from what I can see from the bottle shots online, they do have a good amount of medium tan shades, and then they do have 4 deep shades. And of course, I really hope Maybelline will expand on their shade selection. If you guys have seen the Fit Me foundations, they have expanded and have a lot of shades. Maybelline just expanded the fair and deep shades for the Fit Me concealer and the Instant Age Rewind concealer, which was much needed. So even though we're only starting out with 16 shades, I think that they've done a good job having a good mix of colors from fair to deep, and hopefully they will expand to have even more shades so even more people can find a perfect match. And I went with the second lightest shade in the range, which is Porcelain. There was one shade lighter called Fair Porcelain, which did look a little bit lighter, but it was also a lot more pink tone, and this one looks more yellow toned. I'm thinking that this is going to match me, but I have heard from some people that this does oxidize in them, so I'm really nervous about that. I hate when foundations do it. So I'm going to read you the claims from the Ulta website. It says this foundation has super saturated color pigments that provide an ultra transforming effect. Its lightweight yet high impact coverage formula glides onto the skin for a flawless finish that lasts all day. So it doesn't, oh, it does say on the bottle 24-hour wear claim, so that's a bit ridiculous. We'll see how long it will wear on my oily skin. And for benefits, it says this is oil-free, does not clog pores, dermatologist tested, full coverage foundation with a seamless finish, evens out, camouflages, and enhances. Enhances what? Because if you're enhancing things like texture and pores, that's not a good thing. Minimizes the appearance of flaws and imperfections, and glides onto skin for smooth and breathable wear. So not a ton of claims there, except the basics, which would be that it is full coverage and it's supposed to last up to 24 hours. So to look at the packaging, you have a glass bottle here, a plastic top with a pump. So that's fantastic. I love foundations that either come in a squeeze tube or have a pump, so I'm really glad that the drugstore brands have been stepping it up. As with all of my first impression and follow-up videos, I'll be trying the foundation on one side with a sponge. I'm using the Jessie's Girl Cosmetic Sponge, and I'll be using it on the other side with a brush, using the Sigma F80 Flat Top Kabuki brush. So now we're going to jump into the application. I'm just going to pump this on my finger and dot it onto my skin, doing half at a time. Taking a couple pumps to get started, which is normal. And that is what the product looks like. It is running down very slowly, so this is a little bit on the thicker side, it appears. The color looks really light right now, which is great. We'll see how it looks blended out, but if it's light and then it oxidizes, that's fine. I would rather it match me in some capacity, and I'm going to get a little bit more for the center of my face. So now that I've got this dotted onto my skin, I'm going to go first with the sponge and see how this works. It seems to be blending out pretty quickly and easily, which is nice. I don't usually have a problem with a sponge blending out products. So here is one layer with a sponge versus no foundation. As you can see, the shade is definitely looking a little bit light, but that's okay. And it did even out my skin slightly, but right now I'm breaking out pretty badly and I have a lot of redness on my cheeks, so I'd say we probably have light coverage right now, maybe light medium if I'm being generous. So now let's do the brush side. So just taking my brush and pressing this into my skin. It's blending out pretty easily with a brush too, which is impressive because I don't have any primer on. And it's taking a little bit more time blending it out with the brush, but I always find that sponge blends out product a little bit quicker. So here's one layer of foundation applied with a sponge versus one layer of foundation applied with a brush. I think the brush did give a bit more coverage. I feel like this looks like light and this looks like light medium, leaning towards medium. So brush definitely gave more coverage. So I am gonna put a second layer on each side to see if it is buildable. So here's 2 layers of foundation applied with the sponge versus 1 layer of foundation applied with a brush. I feel like this side of my face looks a lot lighter and it did give a little bit more coverage. I'd say we're leaning towards medium, but I still feel like looking at my skin, 1 layer with a brush gives more coverage than 2 layers with a sponge. What do you guys think on camera here? And I'm wondering if this dries down darker than it is when it's freshly applied. We'll see when I go to apply the second layer on this side of my face, so we'll go ahead and do that. So here's 2 layers of foundation applied with a sponge versus 2 layers applied with the brush. On the brush side, I feel like I do have full coverage. On the sponge side, I feel like I have barely medium. I still have so much redness showing through on this side, and y'all know how much I love my sponge, but I'm actually leaning more towards using a brush. Right now it is 10 a.m. I'm going to apply some under eye concealer and set my face with the Dermablend loose setting powder and be back in 4 hours for my first update. Hey guys, it is 2 p.m. and I am back for my first check-in. I have had this foundation on for 4 hours at this point, and I do think that it oxidized. I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna have to look back at the footage, but from what I remember, my face was looking lighter and now I feel like it matches my skin perfectly, which is awesome. I'm so glad that worked out. I was really afraid it's gonna look too dark for me, but right now I feel like it does match my skin really well, and I actually feel pretty darn oily at this point. I'm very oily around the sides of my nose. It started to collect here in the corners. I feel oily on my forehead, oily on my chin. I accidentally rubbed off some foundation on my chin because I had some like crumbs on there or something and I just wiped away. I feel really oily throughout my T-zone and it's only been 4 hours, so I'm bummed with that because I've seen a bunch of people with oily skin review this foundation and say it's really nice and matte, so I'm not having those oil control properties. And also after I applied this foundation, my skin did look kind of glowy. Once I put my translucent powder on, I didn't have that glow any longer, even though it isn't even a mattifying powder. So I'm not disappointed yet, but I was hoping I'd be a little bit more matte at this point, but I still think it looks nice overall. I'm really happy with the shade match and I am happy with the coverage. So I'm gonna check back in with you guys in another 4 hours. Hey guys, it is 6 p.m. so I've had this foundation on for 8 hours and I'm sorry if I look a bit disheveled. I laid down in the bed to watch YouTube video, which I knew was a mistake, and I was out for a couple hours, but I stayed in one place and I had my hand under my face, so it didn't really actually disturb my makeup, so I'm pretty happy with that. But the foundation on my chin has completely worn away and I feel super greasy right here, so that's a bit of a shame. And then I am super oily on this inner part of my cheek, the sides of my nose, and on my forehead. I'm happy that the foundation hasn't broken up other than my chin, and I'm not really bothered by this because I often sit like this. So I'm not surprised or really that upset. I do have one piece of toilet paper. I'm going to go ahead and blot my skin. So here's what the tissue looks like. I have a little bit of transfer there, but it doesn't really look like it picked up any of the product off my skin. So overall, I'm happy with the way that the foundation looks. I really do think the shade match is nice. It hasn't oxidized anymore since I spoke to you last. The only thing is that I've gotten a lot more oily. I was really hoping that this would be more mattifying than it is, but it isn't bad by any means, and I'm hoping that tomorrow in my follow-up when I use some of my other products it will help me be a little bit more matte. So I'm going to have a text post at the end of the night once it's been a full 12 hours, and then I will see you tomorrow for the follow-up. Hey Guys, today I am back for the follow-up on the Maybelline SuperStay Full Coverage Foundation. So today I'll be inserting this product into my everyday routine so I can get a more accurate picture of how this might actually work for me. So I'll be using it with a primer and powder, and I decided that today I would like to try this foundation with two different primers. I typically go with something like the Lancome Le Base Pro, which is just a basic silicone primer, but I thought on one half my face I can use this, but on the other half of my face I would use the Too Faced Primed and Peachy because this is a mattifying primer, and I want to see if this actually helps make the foundation stay matte for a little bit longer. I figured we might as well try that out together, see if it works. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the Lancome on my finger and I'm going to apply it to this side of my face. And then I'm going to take the Too Faced Primed and then I'm going to take the Too Faced primer and apply it on the other side of my face. So for my application today, I decided that I will be applying it with a brush. You guys know usually for the follow-ups I end up using a sponge, but I really like the coverage with a brush, so I figured I would do that today. So starting just with one side of my face, I'm going to go in with my Sigma F80 brush, pressing this into my skin, the same thing as we did yesterday. So here's what my skin looks like with one layer of foundation applied all over with a brush. I feel like right now we have a solid medium coverage. The shade is definitely looking a bit light, so I can pretty much say that this will oxidize. Here's 2 layers applied with a brush versus 1 layer applied with the brush, so it is definitely built up to a completely full coverage. So here we have 2 layers of foundation applied all over, definitely full coverage with a brush, and I did put a little bit more concentrated product over here my blemishes and it covered them up completely, which is amazing. I never expect foundation to do that. I will always go over top with a blemish concealer, so I was really happy to see that with 2 layers of foundation applied all over, I was completely able to cover up my acne, which, like I said, does not usually happen. And the shade is definitely looking too light for me right now, which definitely leads me to believe that yesterday the foundation did oxidize on me, so you probably want to go a shade down. And really quickly, I'm going to apply my under eye concealer and under eye setting powder off camera and be back for my face powder. So now for my all over face powder, I would rather be using my Maybelline Fit Me loose powder, but I did recently use that up, so I'm using my go-to pressed powder, which is the NYX Stay Matte But Not Flat powder, and this is in the shade number 1, Ivory, and I'm going to be applying that with the Real Techniques powder brush. Because this is so fluffy, it's really going to help set my skin but not really give too much color or coverage. And I looked up close in the mirror at my skin, and the side with the silicone primer and the side with the mattifying primer looks the same right now. So we will see when I check in with you guys if there's any difference in the wear or the shine. So right now it is 10 a.m. and I'm going to check back in with you guys in about 6 hours to give you my final thoughts on this foundation. Hey guys, I am back to give you my final thoughts. It is 5 p.m. so I've had this foundation on for 7 hours at this point. And if you guys remember, I was wearing the Too Faced matte primer on this side and the Lancome silicone primer on this side. I feel equally greasy. Yeah, maybe like a tiny bit more matte over here, but nothing really significant enough. So I'm looking pretty shiny. I could be a lot worse. It isn't that bad looking, but I can definitely feel the oil on my skin when I'm touching my face. So for my final thoughts on this foundation, I love the packaging. This pump is amazing and so easy to control, whether I want a little bit, half a pump, a full pump, so I absolutely love that. And the shade definitely does oxidize, but luckily for me, this shade started out being a little light and oxidized to basically my perfect match. I can definitely get away with wearing this by itself, which is amazing, but I would recommend going 1 shade down. 2 layers with a brush gave amazing full coverage. It even covered up my acne really well, which was really impressive. And it didn't look streaky or dry, which can sometimes happen when I use a brush. So I definitely love the coverage. I love the way that it looks on my skin, but I was hoping this would keep me more matte. I've heard so many people with oily skin that love matte finishes rave about this, and it doesn't keep me the most matte. So I'm definitely going to have to use a matte powder, probably a decent amount of powder, and a matte primer with this to do the best that I can, and I'll have to touch up throughout the day. but I'm not super duper oily. I was just hoping for a little bit more matteness, but I would say that this is probably the best drugstore foundation I've tried in a really long time. I love the Hard Candy Glamouflage foundation, but I like this one better because it gives more coverage and I have a perfect shade. So I would recommend that anybody try out this foundation. I think even if you have dry skin, you will probably enjoy it. Definitely make sure you moisturize. Like I said, I don't have any dry patches that this is clinging to. I'm really happy with the way my skin looks, so highly recommend this, and I'm so happy I was able to get this and try it out. I would love to know your thoughts if you tried out this foundation in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys.